Hello there, let me welcome you to another session of Lightning Talks. And our first speaker at this session is Jason. And Jason is a training engineer with SUSE Linux, which is super cool because these days they are Linux days, this weekend. And he chose to be here instead of Linux days. So I'm really happy that you are here. And he will tell you something about running Tor in containers, which is something that I try to do so many times, but it's not that easy, so I hope I finally learn something. So, Jason, let me hand over to you. Looking forward to your talk.
Thank you. Oh, all right. Good afternoon. Dobré odpoledne. And today we're going to be talking about building Tor services quickly and securely using containers. All right, so what is Tor? Tor is a free software and open network that helps you defend against traffic analysis. See if we can get a new one. All right, it's on now, great. So basically this is a long description from the Tor website. What is Tor really? Tor is an anonymity, security, and privacy network. Now I imagine most of you have heard of Tor, maybe most of you have probably used it. Now, the reason we use Tor is we want to ask a few questions. Do you want corporations to see what you do on the internet? Do you want your government or any other government to see what you do on the internet? Do you have any opinions, beliefs, or ideas that someone might find offensive? I think some of you might have heard recently in the UK, there's been a law put out where you can actually call the police on somebody who offends you. Now, offense is completely subjective. What offends me might not offend the next person, but your opinions can be policed. Tor helps us protect ourselves. It's used by professionals, journalists, activists, bloggers, law enforcement, executives, whistleblowers. Whistleblowers is a big thing. Your company does something wrong, you need to be able to safely say what it is without retribution. And normal people who care about security, who care about being anonymous on the internet. But it's got problems. It's got bad neighbors. Every year you hear about more and more places like child pornography websites on Tor. This is just the fact. This is how it is. And therefore it's got a bad reputation. There's a lot of people who don't want you to use Tor. One, because they don't like the anonymity of it all. They think you should not be anonymous on the internet. But it's also got a bad reputation because, so I'll give you an example. On the Paralelny Polis Facebook group, I asked a few months ago, does Paralelny Polis have a Tor mirror? Immediately someone responded, why, we're not doing anything illegal. Well, it doesn't matter. The fact is that you want to be able to be anonymous, and you want your users to be able to visit you anonymously also. We can help change the face of the Tor network. We can encourage security and privacy advocates and users to harness the power of the network. We can encourage nonprofits. Nonprofits, not just companies like, or organizations like Institute of Crypto Anarchy and Paralelny Polis, but also bloggers to be able to publish on Tor as well as on the free open internet. You can also build your own onion service, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So what isn't Tor? Tor isn't the dark web. What are onion services? Onion services are basically websites that live on the Tor network. They are not accessible on the open internet unless somebody uses like a special proxy like web to Tor or Tor to web, but normally you can't access them. So we're going to just give it some basic idea of how this works. So Michael has a website. He's got a normal open internet website. Alice comes to visit his website, but he can't identify her. To him, she is just another user. He can't see where she comes from. He can't see any kind of statistics about her unless she chooses to give that. But Alice can identify Michael because it's on the open internet. Jan can't identify Alice whenever he's running an onion service because, again, she's just an anonymous person. Alice also can't identify Jan unless he specifically gives that information. This is an important thing to know because this is different than normal internet. Normal internet, person goes to your website, you check your logs, you see their IP. If you do a whois lookup, you can see who owns that domain. This is the normal internet. There really is no anonymity. You can work on it. You can make things more difficult, but you don't have an anonymity. How do containers fit in all of this? We're going to talk about Docker containers specifically. A container image is a lightweight standalone executable package of a piece of software that includes everything needed to run it: code, runtime, system tools, libraries, etc. It's basically a mini operating system that lives in a file. That's a little bit simplistic, but that's really what it is. This allows us to be able to run multiple onion services at once. You don't have to know how to set up the individual pieces. You don't need to be a system admin to be able to set up an onion website with containers. And you can focus on your content, not on the administrative administrative tasks. Here's a quick demonstration. We've got a demonstration. Yeah. Missing the slide. Okay, so we do have a demonstration. It's not here right now. So basically, whenever you can go to GitHub, you can do a git clone of one of my scripts. You do Docker compose up. Oh, wow, that's completely gone. Docker compose up -d. And what we'll do is we'll compile Tor from source. That way you know you're getting the latest version, and it is downloading it from upstream. All of this is completely invisible, or completely transparent, not invisible, completely transparent, so you can see that you're getting the real Tor from the real upstream source, and you're always compiling the latest version. Then it just brings up your service. I've got services for generic LAMP services, services for WordPress, for whatever framework that you want to use. And since this is all open source, it's very, very easy to look through. It's easy to build your own. Once you've got the actual process on how to do this down. So this is how we use containers today. Demonstration. So here's a look at our Docker compose file. Come over here. We're going to be building our code from source. We're going to be using a local volume, which means it's basically a place to save it. We're going to be adding a MariaDB database in case we want some actual database to run with it. And then we're going to be building LAMP, which is a LAMP stack, which is going to be PHP, MySQL, Linux, Apache, MySQL, PHP. And then Docker compose up, and it's done. And this script is all you need to be able to run Tor. Oh, here's my demo. Okay, here it is. All right, so we're going to do Docker compose up -d. It's going to pull down the latest version of MariaDB. And this is not sped up, this is real time. So as you can see, it's in this case, I had already pre-compiled LAMP and Tor, just for the sake of, we don't want to spend 10 minutes here and use up the entire time for my lightning talk. So Docker exec -it, then the name of the container, then this little script I wrote called v3 onions, and there's your onion address, and that's it. Your site's up. You don't need to do anything else. Of course, this is just a plain LAMP stack, so you still need to, have some actual content there, but that's all you really need in order to build an onion site. It's time to opt out of surveillance. It's time to decide, I don't want people watching what I do on the internet. I want to share my ideas, even if they are crazy, even if they're offensive, even if somebody thinks that I'm an absolute loon. We want to be able to share those ideas, and we don't want anybody telling us we can't. Here's my torproject.org, and then here's my GitHub. And on Friday, I shared some torch stickers. I hope somebody got some of those. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Guys, we have a minute for some questions. If you have, yeah, I'll give you microphone. Second.
Hi, thanks for the talk. My question is, what are the real risks of like using Tor and being the exit node of someone else and having troubles because the activity of someone else having like a false positive?
It is a huge risk. There is the Tor project has an entire page of things that you need to be aware of if you run an exit node. You need to have a legal identity. You need to be able to have some kind of legal representation for when this happens. There are special mailing lists that you can join to help with that. There's a big risk, especially if you live in a country like the United States and especially Germany. Now, middle nodes or bridges, relatively safe because they're pretty anonymous. But exit nodes, you got to be careful.
And what about plausible deniability? When I have exit node and, doesn't it give it to me like plausible deniability? Can I say that I didn't do it, and...
You can. That doesn't mean they're not going to take your computers in the meantime.
Okay.
So you still have to go. You might still have to go through a trial. I mean, it's a big deal.
Okay, thank you for the talk.
Okay.
Okay, so thank you, Jason. And our next speaker is Alena Vranova. So you know we need some gender equality normas and stuff. So Alena is here. No, Alena is a really cool girl. I'm
No,
joking.
no,
Alena
thank
is
you.
awesome girl. She's actually one of the founders of Satoshi Labs. And what's your topic today?
How to write a book in 4 days and publish in 14.
That sounds great. Yeah. Okay, Alena. So let me hand
Dam
over to you and enjoy Alena's talk.
Thank you. Oh, thank you, everyone. So I want to share some experience that I made recently when I co-authored the Little Bitcoin book. I'm not going to talk about the book. Please feel free to buy it here and just read it afterwards. But, I'm not a huge writer. I can read a little, but actually sitting down and writing a long text has always been a problem. Even my thesis took me many more months than it's supposed to be. And so because we wrote the book in 4 days, I thought, a lot of people were like, how did you do that? And how did you do that with 8 people on the table? So I want to open source the experience. It's by far not perfect, and we made some mistakes, but I hope I can, give you a little bit of the knowledge. Since I'm in Bitcoin, these are just a few of the questions that I had when I started, and then people keep repeating, right? And so when my, mom comes, so Alena, what is this Bitcoin? I was always frustrated that there's no simple, tiny resource that would give a basic framework to, your family and friends about like why actually Bitcoin matters. And so there were books, great books, but too much, economically, technically heavy. So I was frustrated, and I always wanted to have a book. And I want to show you an itinerary or list of things that you can just basically follow and try to write your book, because I'm sure you have a lot of information in your brain that deserves to see the paper, right? And second thing that you need for this is a team, because writing solo means that you don't have the peer pressure. Writing solo means that you can spend 12, 18, 24 months sitting and editing and thinking and thinking and thinking until you go crazy, right? So having actual peer pressure is great, and also having compatible minds and compatible skill sets. So You can see the authors are like, you may know Jimmy Song. He's a programmer and he's teaching programming Bitcoin. There are people like Alex Gladstein, who's from the Human Rights Foundation, so he's passionate about the why is Bitcoin important for human rights. There are business developers, venture capitalists, people who have studied Stanford and Harvard and all these like super duper schools. People that can do illustrations, such as Luis, who did all the beautiful pictures in the book. And so we put ourselves together, and each of us had a little bit different motivation. So my motivation was to have a simple Q&A book that answers the, let's say, top 100 basic questions about Bitcoin. But Jimmy wanted to get new developers excited, right? People that code, but they don't know about Bitcoin. And Lily or Alex Lloyd, they wanted something for VCs, to answer, like to put really the basic framework. And so in order to achieve that, we decided to put even more pressure on ourselves. So one is limited space, to be in one place, because all of the authors are from a different continent. We're actually from 5 different continents, which also is problematic with the time zones and scheduling stuff and agreeing. So being in one place actually helped us to be focused, to be like a boiling pot. It also allowed us to, go, me spending my time on the swimming pool, someone else was hiding in their room, and we were able to reconvene once or twice a day to just, discuss stuff that was not clear. I hope you appreciate the sticker of Alex on his laptop. So this looked great, and then we also limited our time. Because if you don't have a specific deadline, then you know how it is. We will finish, and eventually you keep postponing. And I'm saying that we wrote it in 4 days. Actually, we wrote it in even smaller time frame, and there was no preparation up front. So we did not discuss particularities. We only knew, and that was a common goal, that we want to produce a simple, small, easy to read book that would explain why Bitcoin matters, right? That was the only thing we pre-discussed. So nobody came like with contents or stuff like that. So the day one was planning, then the 2 days was really iterative writing, and I will touch on that a little bit later. And the last day was really editing, so it's easy to read and there's no serious errata, although there are some still. But basically, this was the thing. And so when we started here, the planning, the day one, the first thing we started is to each one describe your target audience. And each one had a completely different person in their minds. I wanted to write something for my mom. They wanted to write something for students or VCs. But that was important to just put it out there. And then we were testing ourselves. So we were playing, basically role playing. I was my mom, okay, and I had some basic questions, like, isn't this illegal? Is government gonna turn it off? And then we basically flipped the roles and answered or gave a review of, after reading this book, now I know. So what my mom feels and would say after reading that book. So we knew mentally where I need to get from and towards. That makes sense. And each one had a different perspective, and that's fine. You don't necessarily have to agree about, okay, we're gonna write it for Alena's mom. Okay? Everyone has his target audience in mind and makes sure that everything that's written down is comprehensible for that particular person. So, how we did was the day continued. When we had this clear, we started to plan the content. What I did, okay, I lied a little bit about the preparation. I wrote some questions on the flight to California, to the house. I was sitting on my flight and I just put together a huge list. And some of the other guys, they put their questions that they recently or frequently received. And so we had roughly 75 questions in an Excel sheet that we wrote on little Post-its. And then we started to just put them on the wall and assemble them into logical boxes. And eventually we came up with chapters, with the structure, and with a plan. And the plan looked like this. This was a board that we shared, and we basically, each of us started with one of the chapters. And after I wrote a chapter, for example, the foreword, that's Alena, that's me, first one, then someone else came and took the first chapter and rewrote it, okay? And in an iterative way, eventually each of the 8 authors went through the same, through all of the chapters, okay? Now, we were not polite. We were not, commenting and suggesting and asking, do you mind if I change the wording? Because the principle number 1 is this is a group ownership. Okay, we have a goal and we cannot nitpick or we cannot fight over the wording. And you also need to kind of give up some, ownership. And there was a lot of different political views. We are not all voluntaries, libertarians, or anarchists at all. So everyone was kind of seeing a different angle. And so it's super important to not feel ownership of the chapter that you wrote or the part that you wrote, because in the end, what matters is the outcome as a whole. And so instead of like being polite, you just go and rewrite the chapter that you're reading by keeping the most important stuff, adding what's absolutely necessary for understanding, deleting redundant stuff, right? And generally just making sure it's easy to read and the flow is nice. What we did not have, instead of, except for a good numbering, is an editor on the team. And that I advise you, if you want to try this approach, really to find a professional editor, because none of us is skilled in writing, except for Jimmy, I think is skilled in writing books and how to narrate a book, how to use, us, them, they. Those are like stylistic things that would benefit heavily from having an editor. Public, the last day took basically all the day. We were preparing the document which was written to make it formatted well, and it was like a lot of work for Luis, because Luis Buenaventura, he was the one taking care of that. And tell a story, like that's one thing that, we are heavily in the tech space, and we are pretty much used to read white papers and technical stuff, right? But our target audience is not, so we try to open the book by telling stories and putting the framework. And you can do it with actual storytelling, or you can, use pictures. Okay, that's funny, formatting. And I think Luis has done a great job there as well to make it somehow nice. But that's an option. Okay, tools. Well, I should not promote Google, but I do, because it's just great for collaborative writing. So we use that, and then of course some InDesign and Illustrator for the cover. Also Procreate, which helped in creating those little illustrations pretty quickly. And then the publishing process itself. So we were in a discussion whether to self-publish or to go with a publisher. Going with a traditional publisher is better in the form of like, okay, they should make sure that you and your book lands in the actual stores and maybe globally, right? But it takes months and months and months. So we want it to be fast, have it done, and after leaving the house, knowing that it's going to be available on Amazon in just a few days. So we chose Amazon because Amazon just really did a good job here. It helps you prepare. When you go to the Kindle Direct Publishing, there's a cover creator, a converter, basically a tool that helps you do the DTP work that otherwise would take someone else quite some work. We finally, after playing with those tools, they're still not perfect. Okay, be ready. Don't think that it's gonna happen like that, because in the end we ended up just converting everything to CSS. using Markdown, and then exporting to the final files. And you create your profile on Amazon Author Central. If you're like more authors, everyone has to have his own author account with Amazon. And then you basically connect the authors to the book. And if you want to create an audiobook, Amazon also has this tool that allows you to upload MP3s. We are working with Guy Swan. I don't know if you know this guy. He's one of my favorite podcasters. He's trying to make me stop. He's doing a cryptoeconomy podcast, reading a lot of Bitcoin-related stuff. So make sure you read the ACX conditions because they have pretty much high bars for the quality of the recording. So I hope this will be helpful, and I'll skip this because the work never ends. We're trying to get the book translated, and if you want to help, either share the book or send some funds or just contact us if you want to help with the actual translations. Thank you.
So did you notice how Alena came to stage and the room is suddenly full? I love that. Okay, Alena, thank you for your talk. It was lovely. And our next speaker is Pavel, who is representing multinational, decentralized development group of project Bitcannery. And he's kind of facade, kind of face of this project, and it is pretty cool. It is about locking and encrypting stuff into blockchain, which is something that we used in Bratislava to prove a corruption. And I think this is a really cool use case, and we will tell you more about it. So, Pavel, it's yours.
Is this thing on? Can you hear me? Oh, nice, cool. So. Great advantage to speak after Alena. I have the room full, otherwise I would have like 5 people, I guess. So thank you for being here, and especially thanks to Parallelin Polis and Juraj and Pavel for inviting me and giving me this opportunity to tell you about our project. So, yeah, this is my favorite picture, but let's start from this one. So don't you just hate it when you're imprisoned by a government or by some other body and all your digital assets or all your things you want to, keep safe, get in the wrong hands, or when you suddenly die because, unfortunately, despite all the nice talks we had recently in Parallelin Polis about extending your life expectancy and stuff, we're all but dust, and one day we will just perish. And I think personal freedoms also involves this degree of responsibility when you think about the moment when you're not in charge, but like how to stay in charge when you're not around. So think about this for a moment, like what kind of strategy you have for this moment when you're not around anymore. So this is our solution. We've created a system called Bitcannery. It allows you to keep your secret on the blockchain. In a very specific implementation, it's Ethereum, but we're not binded to Ethereum. We can use any other smart contract compatible blockchain. This system allows you not just to keep your secret on the blockchain, it's delayed publication. So in a nutshell, it works like this. So you're an Alice, you have a secret, you put it on a chain using one key, and another key is split between custodians called keepers, and you perform periodic check-in, which can be whatever action which requires your authorization, but in our case, it's just sending Ether to a smart contract. So while you check in, everything is fine, and your secret is on the chain, and nobody can access it. But then when moment comes and you missed your check-in, so again, this is how you usually miss your check-in, because you just cannot be there. But then what happens is your secret is decrypted, the custodians provides the parts of the key, and then secret can be accessed to whoever has the second key, your trustee. So this is system. Sorry for skipping the slides. This is like system described like only on one foot. So since I still have a couple of minutes, I can go in specifics. We use, as I said, Ethereum and smart contracts. We use two keys. One is asymmetric, another is symmetric. This symmetric key is split between keepers. And we use some kind of hybrid approach. There are projects like Dark Crystal or recent Trezor Shamir secret backup, which is very cool. We also use Shamir, by the way. But in systems like Dark Crystal, for example, you elect your custodians. You pick people who you trust, like your relatives, your friends, your whoever, and then you give them the parts, the shards of your secret. This is working up to a point. Again, if you really like, if you're a person of the high profile, then finding your family is really, it's quite simple, and like you can enforce your family and friends in the same manner as you can enforce yourself to disclose your secret. But if you have, apart from your family and trusted keepers, you have also some economically incentivized keepers. Simply put, nodes. Like you can be a keeper in our system. You can run a node on your computer, in your cloud, and just earn money, earn ether. You get this ether for keeping somebody else's secret. So in this case, you have a fine balance between people who incentivized by social bond and between people who just incentivized by money, which is good enough, we think. But okay, no but, there is and. So this is what we suggest. We suggest you opt out from centralized services, obviously notaries, human agents, centralized password storages. It's just amazing how many people still use Google Docs or Gmail for keeping secrets there. I know a very sad story. Some friend of colleague of mine, a great photographer and artist, he deceased last year, and nobody can access his Google Drive. And the family tried to access Google Drive and get his pictures, his artworks from the Google Drive. And Google replied, sorry, we don't care your family. It's personal information. There is no process for that. That's all. So that's, I think it's not good. It's not good enough. Again, for people who really care about freedom, like freedom of the time when you're not there is really important. So the most important part why I'm here, this project is in mainnet, but it's still not production ready. And we eagerly looking for the feedback from the community. We want this code to be audited. We want this DApp, decentralized application, be tested. It's there, it's on the website. You just need the browser to access it, and some ether, some test ether to play with it. Please drop us a line, tell us what you think about that. We just want to build something which is useful. We're also looking for partnerships, so to be part maybe of some wallet. It will be really, I think, useful integration. Same goes for our Keeper node. It can be useful addition to any hardware node. So just be in touch. Everything, it's just application. It's not really interesting, but it's how it looks. So drop us a line, be in touch, and tell us what you think about the project. That's all I have. Thank you.
We have time for one or two questions. So if you have, yeah.
In your diagram, I saw that the secret was first encrypted with your key and then encrypted with this key that gets sharded. Does that mean it's encrypted with both?
Yes, it's encrypted with both.
So if you're taken away, basically it's still encrypted twice and it can't be decrypted with the sharded key.
So given the Assange situation, like as a use case, let's assume he has a trustee, and this trustee has a asymmetric key. So the secret is encrypted with the public key of trustee, and then with this symmetric key which is sharded between keepers. So when moment comes and you skipped and you miss your check-in, you need to reconstruct the key from the keepers, and then also use your trusted key, because otherwise keepers can theoretically gather together and then just decrypt the keeper's secret, given the right incentive. Does it answer your question?
Okay, maybe one more question. Anybody? Oh, yeah.
Pretty far.
Hey. Sorry, the light is so strong.
I imagine that the keepers will change over time because even if they're incentivized economically, maybe someone drops out, server dies. How do you manage key rotation in that case?
Absolutely, yes. This is one of the weakest point of current design, because right now we do so-called keeper rotation. That's called exactly that. So you need to reconstruct your contract and bring Alice back online to get secret again. So this is really a cumbersome procedure. So you cannot do it automatically. So we're thinking about design which will allow some very, very generous threshold for keepers. So you have just enough keepers. So even people, they will start to drop out and to wither with time. People change their motives, we cannot control them, then still Alice will have just enough keepers to reconstruct the secret. Also reputation system and stake system can help, but yeah, that's one of the crucial points we're working on right now. We just need a lot of keepers. Ideally, like in blockchain, like Bitcoin blockchain, 40,000 will be enough. Yes. But thank you for this question.
Okay, thank you, Pavel, for your talk.
Cool.
Amazing. Give him.
Thank you. Thanks, Parallel Polis.
Love it.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.